Practice English every day. Listen and repeat after me. My incredible journey to Mongolia.
My name is Alex, and I'm a young, adventurous traveler. I've always been fascinated by Mongolia, a land of vast steppes, nomadic people, and rich history. So when I had the chance to visit this incredible country, I jumped at the opportunity. I started my journey in Ulaanbaatar, the capital city of Mongolia. It's a bustling city with a mix of modern buildings and traditional Mongolian architecture. I visited the Gandan Monastery, a beautiful Buddhist temple, and the National Museum of Mongolian History, where I learned about the country's fascinating past. After exploring Ulaanbaatar, I ventured out into the countryside. I traveled by jeep across the vast steppes, visiting nomadic families and learning about their unique way of life. I rode horses through the stunning landscapes, hiked in the mountains, and even tried my hand at wrestling, a traditional Mongolian sport. One of the highlights of my trip was visiting the Gobi Desert. It's a vast, otherworldly place with towering sand dunes, rugged canyons, and ancient rock formations. I rode camels through the desert, camped under the stars, and visited the flaming cliffs where dinosaur fossils have been found. I also had the chance to experience the Naadam Festival, a traditional Mongolian festival that celebrates the country's nomadic culture. I watched horse races, archery competitions, and wrestling matches, and I even got to try some traditional Mongolian food. My trip to Mongolia was an incredible experience. I learned so much about the country's culture, history, and people, and I made memories that will last a lifetime. I can't wait to go back someday and explore more of this amazing country. Chapter 1. Ulaanbaatar. My adventure began in Ulaanbaatar, the capital of Mongolia. It's a city of contrasts, where modern buildings stand alongside traditional Mongolian yurts, the round felt-covered tents that nomadic people have lived in for centuries. I arrived in Ulaanbaatar by plane, and I was immediately struck by the city's unique atmosphere. It's a bustling city, but it also has a laid-back vibe. The people are friendly and welcoming, and there's a sense of community that I didn't find in other big cities. I checked into my hotel and then set out to explore the city. My first stop was the Gandan Monastery, a beautiful Buddhist temple. It's one of the most important religious sites in Mongolia, and it's home to a large community of monks. I wandered around the monastery, admiring the colorful buildings and the intricate artwork. I also saw the giant statue of Medjidjan Rezig, a Buddhist deity. It's one of the tallest indoor statues in the world, and it's truly awe-inspiring. After visiting the Gandan Monastery, I went to the National Museum of Mongolian History. The museum has a fascinating collection of artifacts that tell the story of Mongolia's past. I learned about the country's ancient history, its nomadic culture, and its more recent history as a communist state. I spent the rest of the day exploring Ulaanbaatar. I visited the Sukbatar Square, the central square of the city, and I walked around the State Department Store, a huge department store that sells everything from traditional Mongolian clothing to modern electronics. In the evening, I went to a traditional Mongolian restaurant for dinner. I tried some delicious Mongolian food, including booze, steamed dumplings, kushur, fried meat pastries, and irag, fermented mare's milk. Chapter 2. The Steppes. The next day, I left Ulaanbaatar and traveled out into the countryside. I hired a driver to take me across the vast steppes, the rolling grasslands that make up much of Mongolia. The steppes are an incredible place. They're so vast and open, and there's a sense of freedom that I didn't find anywhere else. I saw herds of horses galloping across the plains, and I passed by nomadic families living in their gurs. I stopped at a few nomadic families' gurs and learned about their way of life. They're incredibly self-sufficient, and they have a deep connection to the land. They showed me how they make their traditional food, and they even let me try some of their arag. I also had the chance to ride horses through the steppes. It was an amazing experience. The horses are strong and well-trained, and they're the perfect way to explore the vast landscapes. Chapter 3. The Gobi Desert. After exploring the steppes, I traveled to the Gobi Desert. It's a vast, otherworldly place with towering sand dunes, rugged canyons, and ancient rock formations. I hired a guide to take me through the desert. We traveled by jeep, and we camped under the stars at night. The Gobi Desert is an incredibly beautiful place, and it's also very remote. There are no roads, and there are very few people living there. One of the highlights of my time in the Gobi Desert was visiting the Flaming Cliffs. There are a series of red sandstone cliffs that are said to look like flames. The Flaming Cliffs are also where many dinosaur fossils have been found. I also had the chance to ride camels through the desert. It was a unique experience, and it gave me a different perspective on the landscape. Chapter 4. The Ni-Adam Festival. My trip to Mongolia coincided with the Ni-Adam Festival, a traditional Mongolian festival that celebrates the country's nomadic culture. The Ni-Adam Festival is held every year in July, and it's a huge event. People come from all over Mongolia to attend the festival. The Ni-Adam Festival features horse races, archery competitions, and wrestling matches. I watched all 3 events, and I was amazed by the skill and athleticism of the competitors. I also got to try some traditional Mongolian food at the Ni-Adam Festival. There were many food stalls selling booze, kushur, and other Mongolian dishes. Chapter 5. Farewell Mongolia. My trip to Mongolia came to an end all too soon. I had an incredible time exploring this amazing country. I learned so much about the culture, history, and people of Mongolia, and I made memories that will last a lifetime. I left Mongolia with a deep appreciation for the country and its people. I can't wait to go back someday and explore more of this incredible land.